right. So we know that there are still several people coming in. We will continue to allow those users to come in, but we are going to go ahead and get started. This is our October Schoolnet webinar, and for the first time, we are doing something very different. So we look forward to feedback from all of you if this is something that we would like to have in the future. But this is going to be a Common Formative Assessment discussion panel. So we're going to have the link to this slide deck in the chat that we'll share in just a second. But basically, it's going to be a time for us to discuss a little bit about how Schoolnet can be used as a CFA, but then open up the floor for you to be able to ask some of our expert districts on the call any questions that you have about CFAs, and they are willing and able to share their expert knowledge of what they've experienced in their districts to kind of help you along in this journey for your district with the lens of CFAs. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. First up, I'll go ahead and introduce myself since I'm already talking, but my name is Rebecca Stokes. I'm the product manager for NCDPI for Schoolnet, and I am so thankful that you are all here with us today. Catherine, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Catherine Simone. I'm the implementation manager for from Pearson for all things Schoolnet in North Carolina. Nice to see you all today.
Perfect. Melissa, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Melissa Morris. I'm the secondary math coach for Rowan Salisbury Schools.
And I'm
Wendy.
and I'm Wendy Fusco. I'm the District Instructional Technology Facilitator for Buncombe County Schools.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for being here with us today. It's usually Catherine and I just talking nonstop for an hour, so we're so excited to have you both here with us today. I am trying my hardest to figure out, I'm going to stop sharing really quick so I can get back to the call so that I can, so a little bit different for this meeting, I'm allowing mics and cameras because of course, with this being a discussion, we want you to be able to ask those questions when we get to that portion of this session. But in the chat, I have the slide deck for today. There we go. And then let me start sharing again so we can go ahead and get started. All right. All right, so again, thank you all so much for being here with us. If you don't mind, in the chat, because we don't want everyone unmuting all at once, if you could let us know what district you are joining us from, and if you could just put in there what your experience with CFAs are so far. Is your district just getting started? Are you already knee-deep in CFAs and you just have some additional questions? Or are you a district that is thinking about getting started? We'd love to know where you're at with this thought in mind. So if you don't mind just sticking in the chat those things, just so we're aware of who is joining us and what stage you are at. And while you are doing that, I'm going to go ahead and talk about our agenda for today. So we've already done the welcome, but we're going to briefly talk about how you can use Schoolnet for your common formative assessments. And then both of our districts on the call are going to share their perspective. And then we are literally going to open up the rest of the call for questions. So we highly encourage unmuting and asking questions when we get to that part, because it's going to be awfully boring if nobody asks any questions. And we don't want our friends here with us to just be sitting in silence. So we highly encourage you, if you aren't comfortable unmuting and asking a question, please feel free to put it in the chat. But that's why we're all here, is to have this discussion. So that's exactly what this is. So when we get to that part, please don't be shy. Unmute and ask away. Okay. All right. So I'm going to let someone in real quick. And I don't know.
I can do that for you, Rebecca. I've been letting them in and changing their permissions. So
you're the best. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, let's get started since it's 4:06. All right. So first up, we're going to talk about how you can use Schoolnet with your CFAs or with your common formative assessments. So with Schoolnet, you can utilize co-author folders and subfolders. So we're going to talk about how you can use those. You can use scheduling, the scheduling assessments windows. You can use the restrictions. You also can use the test windows that are available in Schoolnet now as well. All of these will help you with your CFAs and making sure that they are getting to the right classes, that they're being scheduled to the right people, and that all of the data is being viewed by leadership and by teachers as well. All right, so first up is co-authoring. And the reason why we want to bring this up is because, again, depending on where your district is in this process, some districts choose to have teachers create what they're going to use as a CFA. Others, it's a collaboration between teachers and instructional coaches, and others, it is just district leaders. So it is completely up to your district how you decide to do that. But we wanted to let you know what your options were if you were interested in having multiple people work together on creating an assessment. And to do that, you would want to use co-author folders. So I'm actually going to hop out of here and hop into the training site. And Catherine, I know I say this, but please feel free to interrupt me at any time that you want to add something or correct something that I say. I want to go ahead and throw that out there. All right, so in the training site, I'm just going to show you, just in case you're unaware of where co-authoring lives, that is going to be under the Assessments tab. And then you would go to Test Co-authoring. We highly recommend that you utilize folders to be able to keep everything organized, and so that throughout the year, as you are creating CFAs, that they all live together in these folders. Now, how you organize those folders is completely up to you. I would definitely recommend by grade level, but some decide to do subject area instead. Either way, does not matter, but whatever works best for you, but I do recommend creating a folder. So what you would want to do is come over to Create New, and you would want to click Create Folder. And this one I would say is 3rd grade. And I could keep all of my subject areas within 3rd grade, or I could just have one for 3rd grade math and all of my CFAs are in this folder. Again, completely up to you how you would like to utilize that part. And then anyone that you want to be able to build onto the assessments, adding questions, deleting questions, just working together to build assessments, you're going to add those users here. I don't know of anybody in the training site. There's a fake someone, so I'll add them to it. And I need to move my
Rebecca, at
window.
this point,
Yes.
because we have had a couple cases come in, I just want to mention to anyone, if you require any assistance with co-authoring from Rebecca, myself, or Altoni, who picks up the ServiceNow cases, you will need to add us to your folder. We cannot see co-authored tests. So if it's a single test, you would need to add us to the test. If it's a folder, you would need to add us to the folder. And you, just like Rebecca just did, you can just start typing one of our last names and we'll pop up there. So just want to, for assistance, just letting everybody know.
Yes. Because sometimes we'll get emails or tickets about a test, and if we can't find it, I'm like, oh, it's co-authored, because we can't see it unless you add us to it. So, but you can, of course, remove us afterwards if you don't want us on your folder all the time. But once you add users, you would just click Save. And now I have a 3rd grade math folder. Now, something that is new with Schoolnet, if I go into one of these that's already there, there's now an option of creating subfolders. So when I'm in the folder, I can now create a subfolder. And this one, like this parent folder was ELA 4th grade unit tests. Well, this one could be ELA unit one. If I had multiple assessments, if I was doing a pre-test and a post-test, then I could have them in a subfolder. But that is another way to be able to keep everything even more organized, because within the folder, anyone that's on here would be able to see all assessments or all subfolders within here as well. Okay. All right. And y'all let me know if a question comes up as I'm talking because I can't see.
No
All right.
questions right now. We're good.
Perfect. Thank you. Some scheduling options. So first off, we want to make sure we reiterate the importance of scheduling. You want to make sure that your CFAs are being assigned or recommended. If your district is having your CFAs kind of as a requirement that everyone is going to take them, then I would go ahead and assign them to the students. If it's optional, you're creating these as a resource for teachers to use, then you of course can recommend it to the teachers instead, and then they would actually go in and pick up the test in their recommended assessments to be able to give. But either way, it does need to be assigned, whether it is directly to the students or if it's recommended to the teachers and then the teacher actually assigns it to the students. But if you don't assign the assessments, not only is your data going to be sporadic, but you're not going to see the, what's it called? Catherine, what's it called? The Proctor dashboard. That's what. You're not going to see the Proctor
Correct.
dashboard. Students won't get accommodations because if it's not assigned to them, the system doesn't know that they're supposed to get it. So that's a big one. If you want your students to be able to have their accommodations, the assessment has got to be assigned to the students. So we just want to reiterate that. But one thing I have found with Infinite Campus, now that everyone is on the same SIS, I have found that instead of applying the default assignment, I would maybe go in and do the select assignment. And the reason for that is I have found in some districts, a course code in Infinite Campus can have a range of grades. So let's say a 5th grade math class, for example. In Infinite Campus, that course code is assigned a grade range of like 3rd through 6th. If the district does not specify in Infinite Campus that this course code is only for 5th grade, then in the default assignment, you could see some 6th grade math classes, you could see some 4th grade math classes. That is not the case for every district. It is only the ones that did not directly apply that grade level if they kept that grade range. So while some districts would be able to apply the default assignment, I would do the select so you can make sure that all of the course codes that are listed are the appropriate ones for that grade level. Okay, so that's just something I have found with Infinite Campus. And I think until all of the kinks are worked out with things like that, then I would just be on the safe side to select it to make sure that all of your course codes that are there are correct, and that way you can add any additional course codes in that you might need as well. Okay, a few more things to keep in mind before our districts share. With CFAs, you can, of course, apply test restrictions for students like you do on all of the other test categories. We do have this slide in here to give you a detailed description about what each one of these means. So we do recommend keeping this slide deck to be able to reference this, especially like if you want the students to be able to go back and do test corrections, but you don't want them to see what questions they got incorrect, like you don't want them to see the correct answer, then that's going to be a specific restriction of show correctness for student responses. So definitely grab this slide deck to be able to reference later when you are creating your CFAs, and keep these things in mind when you are creating your test. But also for restrictions, if you are making these district benchmarks, you have the ability to apply restrictions for educators as well. Some districts decide to have their CFAs very secure. And so you can, if that is what your district is going to do, you can prevent teachers from viewing the items within a certain window, or you can prevent them from copying the test itself. So other restrictions that you don't normally have on the other test categories, you would have if you're creating your benchmarks or your CFAs as a district benchmark. So again, I would keep this slide deck and reference slides 8 and 9 for those restrictions to see a detailed list of what each one does, and to consider those when you're making your plan with your district. And last thing I want to show you is testing windows. So if you have leadership rights, which I think I'm logged in as a district leader, then you would see, yes, perfect. On the left-hand side, you're going to see assessment admin, and you're going to see test windows. So you can take advantage of testing windows by setting a specific date, and then any test that you create within that window, you can have those same exact settings applied to every single test. So it would save you some time. So I'm going to just create a sample window really quick. Oh, is it not gonna, do I have to go back to 2022? Yes, I do. The training site is 2022, so just ignore that I had to go back in time for that. Let's say my testing window was gonna be from January 1st, 2022 to April 19th, we'll say. I can customize my options, and all of these things that I normally am checking on each individual test, like let's see, allowing only assigned students to take the test, or if I wanted to disable the student section selection to prevent students from choosing the wrong course for this test, tracking and displaying student response time. Any test that I create within this window will automatically have these settings. And now, with a new update that Schoolnet had, you can do the same thing for your restrictions for students. So this way, you're not having to click these options every single time. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that we pointed those things out. You would still have to do the restrictions for educators because that's only on a district benchmark. But if you are clicking the same restrictions for your students every time, if you create a testing window and then create a test within that window, it'll automatically apply for you. And like I said, it's just a little bit of a time saver for you. Okay.
Rebecca, I'm just going to interject right there. We had a few people join while you were going through that portion. Please note that the slide deck has been dropped in the chat. Your microphone, you're able to unmute so that you can join or ask any questions or respond. We had maybe about 5 people join. So,
thank you. All right, well, that is it from us about considerations for your CFA from Schoolnet. So next up, I'm actually going to stop sharing because we have Wendy with Buncombe County who is going to share their experience. And Wendy, if you would like to share your screen, or I can share if you just want to read off of the screen, completely up to you, whichever one you prefer.
You go ahead and share so that I'm not
it.
here pushing buttons trying to figure out how to get my screen up here.
You got it. Whoops, I clicked the wrong button. Hold on. Slideshow. There we go. Oh, I might want to actually share. Welcome to a webinar with Rebecca Stokes, where she doesn't click any of the right buttons. There we go. We should be good now.
There we go. Well, when Rebecca reached out, she asked if I would touch on some of the lessons learned. So these were definitely lessons that took us years to learn. And if it can save some of you maybe a year or two, that would be a good thing. The first thing for us was making sure all of the teachers actually had a Schoolnet role of teacher assigned and to give them access to create school level assignments or school level tests. Because what we found was, first of all, that wasn't the default. They just got a teacher role and that was it. And as we started trying to create tests, the teachers wanted to be able to have grade level tests. And we found that it was a lot easier if that was just automatically in place. Data managers know to add it so that when a new teacher is hired, they just automatically turn it on. And so we don't even have to worry about it anymore. It used to be quite the process. We also, so Buncombe County Schools is a rather large district. We have 45 schools. We have 6 high school districts. So what we have really encouraged teachers to do is not create classroom assessments or even shared classroom assessments, but rather school assessments, because teachers move. Teachers leave a grade level and go to a different grade level. They go to a different school. And if they are the creator of the test, then sometimes the teachers they leave behind don't necessarily have access to that classroom test or whatever. So we run into things. So we just said, hey, let's just start creating school assessments, because then it lives with the school, if you will, so that when new teachers come on, they can actually find past tests, make a copy of those tests, and continue onward, or edit pre-existing without having to start from scratch. We also have instructional coaches, and we learned that if the instructional coaches have some extra roles, they also can create school level tests, but they can see the data from the school level test. So while a teacher can see his or her classroom results, if there's an instructional coach who has some extra access, and I've listed them there as we see them now in Infinite Canvas, it looked different in PowerSchool. But we learned that they could actually see the grade level as a whole, which became really good at identifying common holes in learning and common strengths in learning. And where some teachers might struggle with certain skills and other teachers are stronger in those skills, then they could have a conversation within as a PLC to help each other. But coaches don't instinctively know how to find that data. So therefore, we had to train them on how to do that and how to pull that information and really look at it. And out of that, they can create tests as well. So they can partner with, our teachers create in their PLC. So one person drives, creates the test, but they're all in the room when it's happening. And for most of our teachers, that seems to be the easiest. I will say the majority of the teachers that we have using CFAs is 3rd through 6th grade. I have tried to get my middle school and high school on board, but I haven't had the success there as what I've wanted. But our 3rd through 6th have certainly adopted it, and they're fully on board. As Rebecca shared, where they could co-author and have the folders, we have instructional coaches that are creating in that way. So they're creating tests together and then sharing with their schools. The only thing to know when you do a school assessment is it lives at that school and it's not available to another school. So that's why the last bullet is there, which is me. I put myself in quotes there as expert because I certainly am still learning and I certainly have to email Rebecca from time to time. Um, but you will need someone who can run that interference to where if a school has created some really solid CFAs for them, if other schools want those assessments, then there's got to be this person in between who can copy them and make them available at the other schools. We have district level curriculum specialists, and they have all of the roles because they're the ones creating the benchmarks. And the benchmarks are specifically for math and science. We do have some at the for ELA, but most of our benchmarks live within math and science, especially science. And what we've learned very quickly was that if they want to keep it as a benchmark, they have to assign it to the students, because if they recommend it to teachers, well, we have some teachers who will go in, look at the test, and teach to the test, and then give the benchmark. And so to prevent that, they've learned that they can just assign it directly to all the students and then share only the passcodes with teachers. So those are some of our big lessons learned. Like I said, we are using it predominantly 3rd through 6th, and we're seeing with the schools who use it faithfully, their students are growing. They are simply growing. They focus on 1 to 2. They usually focus on one standard, but 1 or 2 of the sub levels. They don't, and then occasionally they'll do the cumulative overall, but a lot of times the teachers are really looking to see how the students are performing at the standards level, and then the benchmarks are the ones that are doing the overall.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. I did want to add a few things in before I go on to Melissa for her to share her district's perspective. With the additional roles, please do not feel that that is a requirement. That is a district decision. Buncombe County decides to have that option 7. So if your district does not want that, then of course that is fine. And you can use the co-author folders. Just didn't want anyone to think that you had to do that. Completely up to your district. There is no requirement, just completely up to the district. And with the school assessments, Wendy put this in parentheses, but just to keep in mind, school assessments stay with the school, whereas my classroom assessment categories, they stay with the teacher. So if, as Wendy was saying, if you have a teacher that is creating these CFAs, create those the school assessments so that they stay with the school. But if they're creating something just for their classroom, of course, that could still be my classroom and that would follow the teacher. But just to kind of keep those things in mind, because we do know that staff do move, whether it's school or district, but just so you're not surprised if a CFA disappears, because if that person left the school and it was a my classroom, then it of course would follow them with wherever they went. But we are going to, of course, allow you to ask Wendy all the questions that you have, but we're going to have Melissa share first, and then we will open it up. So Melissa, I'll go ahead to you.
Okay, thank you. So for Rowan Salisbury, our use of CFAs is slightly different. We have implemented district-wide CFAs, and we did that about 2 years ago, and we have them built for all EOG and EOC courses, and we have them also built for our 2nd grade as well. So our CFAs are standards aligned to the clusters or units that within our district scope and sequence, they are not cumulative. Depending on the cluster or the unit, the number of items on each CFA range from somewhere just between 7 to 12. Usually on the English or the reading end, that encompasses about 2 passages. So we set our proficiency target at 60%. And after the option for read aloud became available for our math and science EOGs and EOCs last year, we added the text to speech accommodation for all of our math and science CFAs. So that's available for all teachers if students so choose. And then this year, we also added or embedded Desmos calculators for our math CFAs if we thought that the cluster or the unit warranted that. And we have also embedded for Math 1 and Math 3, we've also embedded the TI 84 pluses as well on those. And those are both all available on Schoolnet. As far as, if we'll switch to the next slide, the way that we deliver those to our teachers and our schools, the test IDs and passcodes, we post those on our district scope and sequence page by grade level and content. We also have an additional CFA document that houses all of the CFA codes and passcodes within the entire district, so grade 2 all the way to math 3, so that if teachers want them housed in one place and that's more convenient, then we have that document available to them as well. On our scope and sequence page, we provide a CFA feedback link, and so as teachers are administering those CFAs throughout the semester or throughout the year, if they provide or if they find that there are problems that they run into or edits that they would like to see implemented, then they can add that add those feedback ideas to that CFA feedback link. Some of the feedback ideas that have come into us have been that maybe a passage was too long. Once the kids actually got into it, that the problems may have been out of alignment and they didn't feel like it was reflective of the actual standard, that maybe correct answers weren't provided, or that there was a need for more representation within a certain standard. We use that feedback to edit and revise assessments over the summer. Once those CFAs have been administered and started, because we are doing some comparisons across the district, once they've been started throughout the year, just to keep that data comparison valid, we do not adjust our CFAs within the school year. Also, our accountability department has created a spreadsheet, and they update the proficiency percentages that come in with the CFAs in addition to the number of students taking the CFAs, and that way we're able to ensure that they are being given with fidelity across the district. This helps school level and district level staff to keep track of the accountability and recognize if there's a lag in the pace within a certain school or with a certain grade level or content area. And it also provides us with the possibility of comparing school results with the option of reaching out and collaborating across our district. And then lastly, how we use our CFAs. There's a little bit of conflicting opinions by schools as to whether they want to actually use our district CFAs, which are kind of little mini benchmarks, for classroom grades or assessments. Some of our schools want to use them as assessment grades to instill the importance of trying their best, but others choose not to have them in their grade book. Some, especially at the secondary level and high school in particular, have been creative in starting to use the CFA problems as kind of a baseline for their classroom assessments, and then they supplement additional items to build a complete assessment if they don't feel like there's enough problems within the CFA. As far as following up and using the data on the CFA, our school administrators and district staff are actually using the results of CFAs to oversee data dives and identify follow-up and next step opportunities after we analyze the results. And we use a lot of analyzing the most commonly missed questions within the item analysis to also identify gaps and misconceptions. And so then collectively between staff and support staff and teachers, we're able to work to create ways to spiral back. We provide reteach opportunities, ways to reassess to ensure that students have actually mastered the content. And we've really had to work to overcome, especially since we've required the use of CFAs amongst our teachers, we've had to work to overcome the questions as to why do we have to give both? Why do we give the CFAs and as well as the check-ins? And so for us, our CFAs target more of an individual unit or cluster, while the check-ins are more cumulative in nature. And so additionally, we're analyzing the results of the CFAs as proficiency measures and not specifically just the percent they got correct.
Awesome. Thank you so much. No, that's amazing. Thank you both so much for sharing. That is one reason why, of course, because I love both of your districts, but I wanted to be able to share how two districts use this completely different, whether it's a range of grade levels or whether it's being a required assessment versus a optional assessment. Using Schoolnet as your district CFAs is truly an individual experience for your district. You can use it however you see fit. It is a tool that is there to help enhance student learning, of course, through use of standards, but just really wanted you to be able to see that you have a plethora of options of how your district decides to use this. So thank you both Rowan, Salisbury, and Buncombe County for being willing to share how your district utilizes CFAs. And we now are really going to just open this up for open discussion. The point of this session was to have a panel discussion. So I'm going to stop sharing there. And I encourage you to either put a question in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll be happy to have you ask our experts on the call any questions that you might have about your district starting this process. And like I said, if nobody asks questions, then we'll know that nobody wants to have panel discussions in the future. But please feel free to, I do have a few that I need to fix your mics. To allow those. Go ahead and unmute and ask away.
Hello, everyone. So I'm new to my school district. I'm just here to learn because I've never used Schoolnet before. So I'm just here listening and see what I can learn from you all as it relates to CFA and using Schoolnet. So I've never done it before. So that's why I'm here to see what I can learn.
Awesome. Well, I hope that you were able to learn some things from Wendy and Melissa and how they're using these in their district.
Yes, I have. Appreciate the whole forum.
Absolutely. All right, let's see. I've got a few hands up. Let me see if, and Allison, just so you know, yours is still up. But Heidi. You should be able to unmute.
All right, so I'm able to unmute now.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. We are just beginning the process of common formative assessments in Transylvania County. And I was just wondering, for those of you who used it sort of as an end of a unit test, how many questions did you aim for on your test?
So our benchmarks are more upwards of like 50 questions. But if the teachers are creating a cumulative type of end of unit overall, they are usually creating them somewhere in the 20 to 25 range. Most of the unit assessments, or not unit, but as they go, they stick around 10. I've told the teachers, be sure that you ask enough questions related to a standard that you don't want one that just asks 1 or 2 questions for a standard, because if the kid just simply misses that question, it could be that they just skipped over it. They didn't know that particular one. If they're doing a unit or they're doing a standard, the little tiny 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, they are typically asking 5 questions, give or take, on just the one. And then they bump up to 10 and they blend. And then they go up to somewhere in the 25 range for a unit, just so that they can ask 3 or 4 questions per standard.
Okay, thank
Melissa,
you.
Did you have a different number?
Well, ours is a little different in that we do give them as far as at the end of a cluster, if we're talking elementary or middle or a unit for high school, the the max that we have, and I'm speaking probably more from a math perspective than anything else, but I did go back and look at our reading ones as well. The max is around 12 for us, but again, I think we're using it in a different capacity. But if we are, so for some of our teachers, and I can speak to this from a coach perspective, but also from a classroom teacher perspective as well. Because I started out giving these CFAs as a classroom teacher. And so it was rather frustrating in me trying to give the CFA and my unit assessment and then the check-ins as well. And so as we're navigating this and as we're figuring things out as we go. A lot of our secondary classrooms, as I alluded to earlier, they're taking those CFAs, and most of our CFAs, we do not have any like DOK 1s and very few DOK 2s. So we're really looking at well, I take that back. We do have quite a few 2s just because sometimes there's not 3s and 4s that are available within the standard that we're looking for. But we're taking those more application based on the math end and using those. So then teachers will actually supplement maybe some DOK 1s along with that and merge the CFA along with some supplemental questions to maybe create a 20 to 25 problem unit assessment.
Thank you. And Heidi, I can tell you just from working with another district that's not on the call, their CFAs, they did, I think, a max of their CFAs had to have at least 2 standards with a max of 3 standards, and they had a 15 questions so that they had 5 questions per standard. So it really just depends on how your district is wanting to use this, whether it's by like a smaller cluster or if it's more of a benchmark like what Wendy was discussing. But we definitely recommend at least 3 to 4 questions per standard. So it would really just depend on how many standards you're covering on that assessment.
Okay, that really helps the different perspectives. And did teachers pull from the NCDPI classroom bank, the district bank, you know, like which banks were you all pulling from?
So ours are district created, and so being able to create them from a district level and a district perspective, we try to utilize the benchmark banks because the teachers, am I correct in saying the teachers, individual classroom teachers don't have access to the benchmark banks?
Whereas our specialists are pulling from the benchmark level, and our teachers are really pulling from the banks as a whole, because sometimes some banks don't have questions related to their standards. And rather than incur the frustration of running a search and that specific bank doesn't have any questions, or it only has maybe 5, we typically have our teachers just run all the banks and really focus on the questions themselves and narrow based on either question type, because that's also become a thing, so that as the EOGs are now they're more than ABCD answers. The teachers are really wanting to expose the students to those other question types. So we find that specialists pull from specific banks, teachers not so much.
All right, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. All right, we have another question. Bromley, I want to say Simone, but I don't want to incorrectly pronounce your first name.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, it's Simone.
Perfect.
Thanks for having me. Actually, I'm new here because this is my first year. I'm an international teacher, and you know, I'm trying to navigate this Schoolnet and doing so. Yeah, Haiti had asked about the number of questions. Well, I generally do 9 to 16 questions on a weekly basis, so that, okay, last week, so we do 5.3, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, and we pick questions for all those standards. I'm ELA, by the way, so I pick questions for those standards. So it's roughly 16 questions that I would have assigned. However, my difficulty is when my students finish, I'm unable to actually see where all the grades, because every single week I would have done 10 or to 16 questions for the last couple of weeks, but I'm not able to find where or locate the grades, because even this week I was looking back to see where, okay, I'm seeing the one that they would have done Friday, but those prior to, I'm unable to locate them. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or something, but I'm having a little difficulty there. As I said, I'm new. I would say if I should just call it the school days, I would be just 30 days in, because between September to now, August to now, I would be really 31 days in. So I'm an international teacher from Jamaica, and I'm here. So, you know, so I would appreciate any help that I can get. Thank you.
It sounds like maybe the test was not assigned. If you drop a test ID in the chat, I can look it up while everyone else finishes the discussion and get back to you on that.
Okay, I appreciate it. But the thing is, though, the children would have actually sat the test, so they have done this test.
They can sit the test with a passcode, but if you didn't assign it to them, you're not going to see the results. And I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. But if you give me a test ID, I can check it real quick.
Okay. Okay. because I'm actually seeing the one that they would have done on Friday, but for the others, the last 3 prior to that, I'm not seeing them.
Okay, just give me an ID where you're not seeing the results. And
All right,
then,
I will just look up to find one, at least one, and share it with you.
great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so while Catherine is looking that up, do we have any other questions from any of our other districts about CFAs, the CFA process, any restriction questions or test windows, anything like that that you want to ask our districts on the call?
One other thing I wanted to mention, when the question came up about searching for items and which banks and finding enough items, just remember there is a feature. It works great for math, not as well for not as well for ELA, but if you pull items where you like, we'll say the format of the item, and it has your standard alignment that you're looking for, but you need, let's say, another one with the same standard alignment. You can always duplicate the item within the test and then edit it. The reason why I say it works really well for math is that it's just numbers that you're changing. So you can modify it in that way. And basically you would have 2 questions similar in nature, but actually they're working through different problems with the same standard alignment. So if you get stuck with something like that, you do have the duplicate item feature within the test.
There are any more questions?
While we're waiting on questions, I will throw this out. Our 3rd grade teachers, because our students are new to an EOG, they will use Schoolnet to build stamina. So they will search, they go backwards and they search for passages related to standards, and they pick passages that are small to start with and the questions that go with those passages, and then they incrementally increase the size of the passages. So because we started to notice that today's generation of kid doesn't read the way generations in the past have read, and reading online is quite different than reading paper. In fact, I had a teacher who was convinced her students were doing very well, and they did beautifully when everything was printed. And when they did a Schoolnet test, she realized they couldn't transfer their strategies for reading and using the highlighting tools and things of that nature. So using the ELA to build skill set in just using the online testing tool, and then building stamina certainly has made a difference for our 3rd graders. It also helps with their nervousness that we see if teachers use Schoolnet on a regular basis, every other week, every month. When it comes time for the EOG, they're like, yeah, we're used to this.
Because even because I know, Wendy, you and I discussed this, but even just the scrolling on a device of a passage, if it, especially for third grade, that's very unfamiliar. So if they don't
Yes.
actually do that until the check-in or the EOG,
Mhm.
then that could really throw some test anxiety out. So yeah, I think it's definitely good practice for sure.
My own personal child, when she was in 4th grade, knowingly missed questions on her check-in because she used the answer eliminator and eliminated the right answer, but didn't know how to uneliminate it and get it back. So she ended up saying, "Oh, I marked it off and it was gone, so I just had to answer the question." I was like, "Oh, oops."
All right. Well, we are nearing the end of our time. And Simone, when you get a chance, go ahead and put that test code in the chat for us. But I would like to say,
Sorry, I was just saying,
Mhm.
I'm trying because I'm there looking to see those that they have done prior to this, but I'm not finding them.
No worries. So what we might do, Simone, if you are okay with it, when we are finished with this session, if you want to just remain on the call, then
Yes.
we can look and see what's going on.
Okay, I will appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. All right. But since we don't have any other questions, we're going to say thank you again to Wendy and Melissa for joining us for this discussion and taking questions. While we did not have a lot of questions at this panel, hopefully it did create some ideas for districts, because I know there was several more that were on the call earlier, but might have had to have dropped for some reason. But we appreciate you sharing your expertise and the knowledge of your district and being with us today. And we hope to see everyone at future sessions, but that is all that we have for you today. So again, thank you and have a great rest of your Monday.